Hey, and welcome to another episode of the n8n Spotlight. Let's dive right into the product updates. Bram, are you ready to take it away?
Yeah, of course. So we had a new canvas, which was in alpha. With the new version, it's actually the default canvas for your environment. So it will automatically be updated. So you're using the new canvas. They are still developing on it very much. So if you have any bugs and stuff, just report them, and you can always switch back to the old canvas if there's any real issues. For the sub workflows, we have some nice new features. We can now create a new sub workflow within the execute workflow node, which makes it very easy to just create a sub workflow and go with that. And we now also have the option to link to the sub execution, where you can now just move straight to the execution of the sub workflow instead of having to search for what sub workflow execution was actually corresponding to the main workflow execution. Saves you a lot of time and is very nice to use. I actually love this feature because I use a lot of sub workflows. This rating that was added was very confusing to us at start. We now got some more information that this is for a coming feature where you can rate executions to make your AI better, but that is coming soon. We also got some UI changes. Of course, there were already some changes before. The executions were still on the left here. They are now also moved to this top row, which of course makes it a lot easier to use with everything together. And now if you click on the create button, you can actually see what you can create. So it can be workflow, credential. It doesn't matter where you create something. It's just always there with the option that you have. Mario, do you also have some nice features to show?
Yeah, of course. So when building AI agents, previously the chat was as a window on top of it and you couldn't see anything. And now what has changed is that it's actually down below here, so you can still see what's going on. And let me type something in quickly here. So you can see everything here in the workflow, as well as now you can see here the logs which happened in the background and the chat left to it. So it's very handy to work with it. Also, a pretty great feature is that you can now finally reset the session ID, which is very good when developing workflows, so you have nothing cached in the history. Another tiny detail is that now you can see the input of the previous nodes. So if you take the default settings so that the input is given by the previous nodes, then you have more clarity about which variable is actually being used. And this is also available on the memory. You see here it's a session ID and also in different other AI nodes. For embeddings, there is a new option in OpenAI, which is dimensions. So with this, you can limit the context window and thus saving costs. This is also available for Azure's OpenAI. And let me share a quick tip here for you. This is that for the new canvas, the middle click is the most efficient way to drag around the canvas. And it doesn't matter if you're on a node, on the canvas itself, or even on a sticky note, it works just flawlessly. Also in the mini map, so the moment it's active, you can just drag around in here, which enables you to get quicker from one point to another. And you can also scroll in it, which is then has a very huge effect on it. So now let's switch to the community builds. Bram, what do you have for us?
So this time we have one of my own nodes. Mario really wanted to see how this node works. So here we go. The ApplyMap node actually works by mapping data from one to another. So for example, if you have two APIs where you want to go from one value to another, because of course the APIs are not the same, you can easily do that with this node. So for example, you have some sample data where the country is, for example, UK, NL, or DE, and the gender is a number because some APIs have it like that. Then you can use the apply map node to map one value to another with whatever input you put in. So in this case, if you go to the code, which I just prepared as a little sample, you have the map name, the input, and the output, where we say for this map, the gender, the input is 1, and the output is male. As you can see here, the output is actually male instead of the one that was just shown. And for the language, I put in, okay, if you're from the UK, then your language is English, because maybe an API wants that. And that also for Dutch and German. And you can easily see that all these values are mapped. And you can also rename the fields. So that's what I did for the language, where it was first the country, and now it's the language field. You can easily do that as well, so you don't need another node for that. And we can also set a default value. So if no country was found, so it cannot map any value, or the wrong value was found, then it just defaults back to English. So everything has a default value always. And for the gender in this case, we put it on male just to show what that default value looks like. So I hope you can use this, Mario as well. And let's look at another one. Mario?
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So I also found a community node, which is actually quite old, but it gets maintained still, so it's very good to use. First of all, we have some sample data here, like emails, first name, last name, and all that stuff. And we would like to change this to our liking, which is possible by this text manipulation by adding new options. So example, if I would like to rename these email address to lowercase, we could of course use the expressions and use certain functions to do that. But if you want to have it more in the UI and maybe a bit more accessible or understandable, then you can use this node by adding a data source here. Then we just drag in the email, for example. And then we can add a manipulation. So there is a lot of options here. We can concatenate or like padding to fill up blank spaces, replacing or doing substring, even trim. There's many options. And within these options, there is even more specific options. And let's say for this email address, we wanted to have lowercase, which is already selected, but you have many different other options here as well. But yeah, let's stick with this option. When I execute it, then you can see that this is the original one and that's the new one, which is lowercase then. You can also rename the output. So for example, new email, and of course it's not data anymore, but it's new email. Or if you just use email in this case, so it's the same name as in the original, then it overrides the option. And you can add many manipulations at the same time. So just add other options as you want to. With that, let's wrap up for today. All the links are in the description down below, and see you next time.